Welcome to this week's edition of Church Chat. It is a momentous occasion because we have our first guest star to appear on Church Chat. Cherrie Fleming is with us, and she's going to share an experience of the light with us in just a couple minutes. Back in the early 90s, when I agreed to be the mid-high or junior high camp director at Galilee, they took us on a retreat, and they were supposed to tell us all the ins and outs of camping at Camp Galilee. And the director, Steve Campbell, or the conference director at the time, Steve Campbell, said that we were going to go on we're going to do spider sniffing. And so, in my skepticism, I thought, oh, this is like a snipe hunt. This is sort of initiation. What am I in for here? And so he said, after our evening meeting, bring a flashlight, and we're going to go out and do some spider sniffing. So I dutifully brought a flashlight, thinking, what's he going to do? What's this going to lead to? And sure enough, he took us out to the edge of the woods. My suspicions grew, and he proceeded to light his flashlight and put it on top of his head, and told us all to do the same. And so I, along with all the other director candidates, put my flashlight on my head. And as we approached the edge of the woods, a startling thing happened. Out of the leaves appeared little white eyes. And apparently the light on top of your head reflects off the eyes of the spiders and comes back in line with your eyes. And as we looked out into the woods, you could see little spiders. And just to prove the point, we got closer and you could see on the ground with the flashlights the actual spiders. So it really does work. Spider sniffing, although it's more like spider reflecting. And in the time since then, I realized that we often talk about the light, but it is the light reflecting from us off the spider that helps us to locate the spider. It's that light that reflects back. And so as we think about our own discipleship, it's the light of Christ reflecting back from us that others use to identify us as Christians. Are we reflecting the light of Christ? I don't think we're spiders. I hope not. So anyway, we're going to talk about the light this week, and Cherrie Fleming is going to lead us off.
Well, thank you very much, Sid, for inviting me to be the first guest on Church Chat. I am honored to do so. About 2 weeks ago, I had an amazing dream. At least it was an amazing dream to me. And it was so amazing that I still am thinking about it today, 2 weeks later. That doesn't happen very often. Usually the dreams are gone within minutes or hours after we have them. And it was so incredible that I talked to Sid about it, and that's where the invitation came from. So I would like to read the account of my dream to you that I wrote down immediately upon awakening that day. I dreamed that I was a passenger in a car driving along a stretch of the ocean. It was almost dusk, and the water was shimmering silver white, very, very bright on top, and the most beautiful shade of deep blue-green water I'd ever seen. We were driving slowly, and I was telling the driver that this time of day was my favorite because I love the colors and the sense of peace that I got while there. Then I heard a voice saying, "Everything is going to be all right." And I knew it was God. And then I woke up. And the first thing that I thought was the colors on the water and the light above the water was the brightest, most dazzling light I had ever seen. And the blue-green was a bright shade that I had never, ever seen before. And so I thought, yes, I think this really is God speaking to me. So ever since then, as I said, I have been thinking about it. And during this time, Sid and Church Chat has been about the light, which was very, very wonderful that it happened at the same time. And maybe that was planned. So my thinking on the light is that, as we know, God and Jesus are examples of bringing and spreading the light. And this encourages us to be lights in the world. And the light is a symbol for God. An example that comes to mind are these stories of people with near-death experiences, saying that when they were dying, they were going into the light. So I think my dream, with its emphasis on light, the dazzling light of water and the shimmering, very bright colors, it appeared to me was a symbol of God's presence, and it really was God telling me, everything will be all right. And I passed that message along to you. And then at the same time, it was announced that on December 21st, Saturn and Jupiter will converge to become a super bright star known as the Star of Bethlehem. This is the star that shone over Bethlehem when Jesus was born. This last conversion happened 800 years ago on March 4th, 1226, during the Dark Ages. And now it will shine through the earth's current darkness to bring the light to us. We have much to celebrate in spite of it all. And I say, Merry Christmas to you, and let's celebrate.
So as we've been talking about the theme of the light in Church Chat and the wonderful sermons that we've had, all the way from talking about God creating the light in the beginning and Isaiah's prophecy of the people walking in darkness, seeing the great light in the Messiah, and John's imagery of the light in his gospel. I thought I'd come at it from a slightly different angle and take a step backwards. When we talk about the light, the first question I came up with was, what is it? And Webster defines the light as a noun, the natural agent that stimulates sight and makes things visible, an expression in someone's eyes indicating a particular emotion or mood, understanding of a problem or mystery, enlightenment, an area of something that is brighter or paler than its surroundings. So it made me think, when we talk about the imagery that John uses to describe the light, and particularly in reference to Jesus, it made me look up at a few more things. The distance of the sun to the earth is approximately 93 million miles. The speed of light is 186,282 miles per second. And light can be measured by intensity, by watts or lumens. And so what does all of this mean when we talk about the light? The power of light can be measured. Light does not stay at its source. It travels, it moves. And light can reach great distances. So when we talk about Jesus as the light, that's something else that we can think about. Something else that I would pass on to those of you watching Church Chat, if you have the time to go on the internet and look up the story of poking holes in the darkness. There's a lot of different variations to the story. It was a very common sermon topic, so there's a lot of different interpretations from different sermons, different ministers. The basics of the story is of a young boy staring out the window into the night, looking at the darkness, and suddenly he sees a man going by and lighting the gaslight street lights along the street, and the boy exclaims, "He's punching holes in the darkness." And it reminds me of our candlelight service, how we share the light with our candles, and it illuminates the entire church by collectively joining our little light together.
Well, we certainly haven't exhausted the verses in the Bible about light. I listed a bunch of them and then couldn't decide which way to go. Psalms 89:15. Blessed are those who have learned to acclaim you, who walk in the light of your presence, O Lord. So that's God saying that when we are walking in the Lord's light, we are blessed. And Proverbs 13:9, the light of the righteous shines brightly, but the lamp of the wicked is snuffed out. And then in Isaiah, and I never think about, well, the beginning parts of Isaiah, but I wasn't expecting to find much about the light here. It's Isaiah 58:10. If you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like noonday. Then this morning, when Mark and I were reading, the scripture was Isaiah 61, 1 through 4, and it's talking about the year of the Lord's favor. And yesterday's reading was the one that we did Sunday from the first part of John, announcing the light. So I thought that it was interesting that the author this morning said, today's passage is one of those where it can be hard to place ourselves in the mindset of the people who first heard it. We can try our best, but it's nearly impossible for most of us to recreate the physical, emotional, and spiritual distress of an entire nation that has been sent into exile. The people of Israel haven't just lost their homes, they've lost their sense of safety, their sense of control over their own lives, and for some, even their sense of identity as God's chosen people. It must have been devastating on every level. And as I read that this morning, I thought, and that's what Cherrie had said in that one point about in this dark year, bringing the light from the vision in your dream. So they're talking about the darkness of the people in exile, and the author goes on this morning from the book said, and then Isaiah offers them today's reading, which is Isaiah 61, 1 through 4. How the Spirit of the Lord is upon us, and he sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for captives, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, and how they will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. And that made me think, while our nation hasn't been exiled, and we haven't, many of us at Crossroads haven't lost our homes, there probably are people in our nation who have lost their homes. There's certainly people who are losing their businesses, their livelihoods. And it just made me think that it's really important this year for us to be the light and to offer hope and reassurance to people who maybe don't know the Lord, but certainly are just fiscally and perhaps physically devastated this year. So it was the juxtaposition of yesterday's reading about the light and then today's darkness, where Isaiah talks about everything that's been taken away, and it just reminded me of the way many people are probably feeling this year. So whatever we can do, and Crossroads has been really great about reaching out and trying to bring light and love to people who might not be feeling it.
In conclusion, it's been great to have all these different contributions, all these different ideas about the light and how it shines on us. One of the great traditions of Christmas is the Advent candle lighting. And when I pass those readings out to different people, it's always fascinating to see how they divide up the readings, the prayers, and the scriptures amongst their family and friends to present it to the congregation. And so each one brings their own unique character to the service, but each one lights the candle. Each one shines for the congregation, and each one adds to our celebration. So I hope that all of us, as we live our faith, will shine for Christ, bring our own unique character to it. And a special thank you again to Cherrie Fleming for coming and sharing her thoughts and her dreams with us. And as always, thank you to Randy and Lynn for sharing their thoughts and taking time to be here. Have a great week, stay safe, and we'll see you next time on Church Chat.